Welcome back everyone, Mike McConville here one more time, Stratford, Ontario, Canada for String Tech Workstations. This is the only time in Gibson's history that I can recall where they had a bolt-on neck, which pretty well everybody's gone to now. It's a very interesting history because this was the sort of tooling that was used for the Garrison guitars with the carbon fiber skeleton and the wood top, back and sides. So it's the same neck joint. Very interesting sort of historical footnote on Gibson's history. And that's the big, deep heel joint where the threaded female inserts accept those stove bolts through the head block. It's really funny to see this. I'm intrigued. I know that Carla, the owner, actually thought that maybe it was a knockoff or it was like a fake. And I could see why he would think that, but no, this is a genuine Gibson made in Canada. It's so funny to see this. The body is super shallow. I can barely get my hand in there. So it goes from 8.3 millimeters in depth at the neck to body junction, and this central portion is 9.5. It's actually deeper than it is at the tail block. There you go. The tail block's 9. And the waist is 9.5. So with this model being the CSM, or Canadian Songmaker, it's essentially the forerunner of a very popular guitar they make now called the Gibson Songwriter. So I'm giving you the best camera angle possible because I want you to see what's going on here. There's my 10-inch straight edge, but it's kind of a no-brainer. You can see in the camera how high that is. So I'm going to be doing something a bit unorthodox this time around. I'm going to actually remove the frets from here right up to about here. I'm going to take them out, correct the fingerboard, and reinstall the original frets. Then we'll do our fret dress. So that kit that I send out to you guys is going to make more and more sense as you watch this video. So this is the kit that I send out. There's 5 sanding blocks. They're already loaded up with leather and the sandpaper. So 5 different lengths. And that's the fretting file, a single cut fine mill bastard mounted on a wooden handle. And then there's 6 fret guards that you can cut out for, Kelly Strat, Les Paul, Dreadnought, whatever. And there's 5 aluminum straight edges for doing all your fret work. Everything from about a 1.5 inch for bridging 3 frets at the top end of the scale to a full 24 inch to do the whole fingerboard. This is the problem area. And that's where we're going to start. I'm going to take that last piece of tape off there. Yeah, well, as you can see, I decided to take all those upper frets out. So what we're going to do is we're correcting the fingerboard and getting rid of the speed bump here. And we'll start with our smallest scrub block. So I've just put some fresh 80 grit on that second smallest scrub block. And we're going to take care of this. This is the worst area. This is where we're going to start. Now, I have that leather on there. This is a jointed hardwood block. But I have that leather on there, and it naturally flexes and follows the radius of the fingerboard. So just going to work this high spot first, and we're going to take our little straight edge and kind of check it as we go. Okay, let's take a look at that. Okay, we still got a little bit of fall off here, and that's okay. It's good to have a little bit of fall off, but it's still a little more extreme than I'd like to see. So we're continuing here with the second smallest scrub block. There's 5 blocks that you guys get in your kits. Let's have a look at that. Okay. Much better. Okay, so we're talking seconds of sanding to correct this problem. Now, so this is our 80 grit. I'm hogging off some material in a hurry here, so we're going to switch over to 120 grit and a slightly longer block. There we go. Here's our 120. So we're taking the scratch marks out, obviously, of the 80 grit, and we're also leveling it a little bit further. Now, if we end up with those last two frets sort of dropping off, well, that's fine. We can live with that. That's a big improvement from where it was. Okay. Take another one. I'm fine with that. So this is how I swap out the sandpaper. You know, I wait until it's worn out before I swap it out, but I put that two-sided tape on there, and I'm stepping up to 180 grit just to finish off that ebony fingerboard. So a quick brush with this 180 grit, and I know, a lot of people have asked me, well, how do you know if you're following the radius? Well, you got to take my word for it here, people. I've been doing this for 50 years, and I have gone back and forth with the Amish, the Mennonites, and they tan this leather to the exact thickness. I get the exact flexibility I need to naturally follow that fingerboard radius. So I did vacuum that off again. Sort of checking this across the width, and it looks very good. Yep, so our fall off now is designated to the last 3 frets. That's where it drops off. And the rest of these frets here, up to here, are going to follow the same trajectory as the first 8 frets. Okay, we'll put our fret guard back on. Oh, incidentally, Will, your fret guards and your fretting kit is on its way, so I'll send the tracking number when I get back into the office. So whether you love it or hate it, this is a historically significant guitar. You can see that truss rod. I would imagine it's a Garrison truss rod. So this is kind of thrown together from leftover parts, I guess, a last-ditch, desperate effort to make Gibson guitars in Newfoundland. Alas, it was never meant to be. The truss rod works perfectly fine. I'm going to back it off just a little bit there. Huh. Looks pretty good. Ready to dress. Now we're ready to recrown. I'm working from the center of the fret to the outside. Now I'll come around to the other side, because obviously the body is in the way, so you've got to start at the center of the highest part of the radius and move towards the outside. And of course this is just for the fingerboard extension while you're working over top of the body. Here you can go all the way across. So the recrowning is done. So we've got our 400 grit. This takes out all the tooling marks of the leveling file. So And of course this is a scrub block that you'll get in your kit there, Will. And it just flexes over those crowns and scrubs them back to center in no time at all. So the other thing I'm doing, got a second piece of 400 grit here, is I'm going to get rid of the last little bit of sharpness on those outside edges where we just did our edge dress. Now this is a cloth back 400. I get that from a supplier here in Canada, sandpaper.ca. Check them out online. You can order these. I get these in a 10-foot roll. Finish up with this 400 grit and get rid of the last of those sort of sharp edges. You need cloth back paper to do this. When you try to get rid of these sharp edges, they'll just shred the paper, sandpaper. So you need cloth back. I've got my 600 already loaded, and that is going to take the scratch marks of the 400 out. Second piece of 600. Now I've got my emery cloth. From there, we'll buff it out with the canvas wheel. So there's our emery paper. Just about ready to go to the canvas wheel. And we are ready for the canvas wheel. Okay, we'll load this canvas wheel up with some jeweler's rouge. So a quick word of caution here. When you're buffing those outside edges and you have plastic binding, you do not want to pause when you're buffing. You'll melt that plastic binding. So keep the tool moving. Now in the center of the fret it's fine, it's just those outside edges. You want to keep that tool moving. This is about the rate that I polish. So almost do those outside edges as a separate operation. I'm doing the lion's share of the fret first, and then I'll go over those edges and keep the tool moving at a good clip so that we don't melt that plastic. You know, this guitar must have been put together by bits and pieces. It's kind of half Garrison, half Gibson. That's definitely a Garrison truss rod. It's not a Gibson truss rod. So all of those frets were reinstalled. And then I did the fret level, recrown and polish. And we got the action down pretty good on this. The saddle that was in there, the one that I took out, wasn't high enough. I've often talked about the 6 different planes of neck to body angle that need to be taken into consideration when the neck is set to the body. This one, the actual neck set is too far back this way. Well, I won't say it's too far back, but it is borderline. So for a steel string guitar, the distance from the soundboard surface to the underside of the 6th string should be somewhere between 1/2 inch and 5/8. 5/8 at the max and 1/2 inch at least. So this saddle is sort of at the top end. You wouldn't want it to be too much higher. There's plenty to play with to adjust the action, so that won't be an issue. He'll always be able to set this thing up any way he wants. Now most seasoned guitar techs that have worked on Gibsons would know that this relief cut for access to the truss rod is also not typical Gibson. The truss rod cover is, though. It's an authentic Gibson truss rod cover. And the other thing I noticed is the actual dimension, thread, length, and thickness of these truss rod cover screws are not typical Gibson. I know that I'm splitting hairs, but it's really just a point of interest. I'm just pointing it out. I'm not complaining. I actually find it kind of intriguing. It's actually quite a thick top, too. Very rigidly braced, which it needs to be with the action that high. And speaking of action, if you remember earlier in the video, this is where the action lies now. And you can see that fall off. We've kind of pushed it further along now, last 2-3 frets. And this also gives you an idea how high that saddle is. But it's solid, it's not tipping, it's in there, good press fit. And the system actually sounds pretty good in this guitar. Well, it plays great, silky smooth, perfectly in tune. Let's go have a listen. Okay, here we go. This is the wrap up. That's our compensated nut. These are 11 to 52 strings at concert pitch. So we'll just start by doing a quick round robin. Chords. Actually, let me just turn this off. You can hear it acoustically. I've looped this progression. So we'll let that play. So I took Will's suggestion and got this airy, what's it called? An airy wave. Yeah, I think it's called airy wave tuner. And you know, it works pretty good. I mean, I'm kind of bouncing still. The jury's not in completely on this one yet, but bouncing back and forth between the clear tune and this new airy wave tuner. Anyway, guitar's tuned. So here's another progression. This is, and I've looped this. I'll play over this. So this is C minor. So I'll let that play.